What's up, Covalence friends? Today we're going to be going over some mobile debugging techniques that I think everybody should know if they're going to be creating an application that's going to be mobile friendly. So we are going to be doing some things that are a little bit more advanced than what is typical for a beginner tutorial. We're going to be introducing some Node applications. But again, a lot of this you can use without knowing anything about Node, so you can either disregard this, but I also feel like you should know how to do this from the beginning. So as you move into things like Node and some more advanced application building, you will be able to utilize these techniques and build mobile-friendly, very good applications. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. Otherwise, we're going to get right into it. All right, so let's go ahead and use our Canvas signature repo. I provided the link in the description below, but I've already cloned it and npm installed, so we should be able to go ahead and just run it. And you can use any application, it doesn't really matter. I'm just using this one for demo purposes. And so we're ready to go ahead and do npm run dev, which is the actual run script that we've defined in our package.json. And it's going to run a server on port 3000. So we can go ahead and pop open a web browser and go to localhost 3000. So we have our application up. I'm going to open up Chrome's DevTools, and you can see that it works, as designed. And obviously, all of Chrome's DevTools work. Hopefully, you're familiar with Chrome's DevTools because, it's definitely kind of like step one in learning to code and learning to debug. But what you may not be super familiar with is the actual device toolbar that they have here. So if you toggle this, it will simulate a device, and it has different dimensions here. Obviously they have a list of devices with those dimensions. You have the iPad Air, you have like the Surface Duo, and iPhone SE is pretty standard, or the iPhone 12 Pro, a little bit longer, or they have the responsive one as well, which actually you can actually define what the width and height of the device are. But this isn't perfect because, for instance, there are actual certain events that fire on an iPhone that will not fire here. So it doesn't actually simulate iOS. It just simulates the actual device size, and then it simulates the device specific things like touch events and things like that. So you can actually see the cursor changes when you go over the device, and it's simulating the actual touch event itself. So when you actually do this, it is doing this based off of touch events and not mouse events, right? Whereas if we toggle the device off, this is working on mouse events. And so being able to simulate these touch events is pretty huge. And so this is kind of my step one for mobile debugging, right? If I needed to be pretty sure that it's going to work similarly to this on a mobile device, always use the Chrome device simulator here. Now, you can also kind of rotate this thing. This application, I don't believe, was written for scrollability. So let's see. Okay. So yeah, if I actually start to draw this thing, it will scroll. Let's go ahead and actually fix that real quick. Why not? Some real-time coding of an older repo. So let's go ahead and open the app.ts. Let's see. It's going to be onsig move. We can come in here and we can say ev.prevent default. This should prevent it from scrolling. And because the offset is probably going to be off because we're using page X and page Y, let's change this to client X and client Y. All right, and that should fix it. And I'll check these in, so by the time you pull this repo, if you do pull the repo down, these will be fixed and it'll work as is. But again, let's probably open this back up, refresh the page, and we can see that now, yeah, it doesn't scroll when we're doing this, and we actually have everything working and putting in the right space. So again, our signature is working now. Let's go ahead and clear, and let's see. So yeah, again, this is a pretty good way to debug your application, right? We're running this locally, and we're able to test this on a mobile device. Now, what happens if you do want to test something that is very specific for iOS or Android in particular? Now, Android has the ability to kind of hook up an actual device, to the Chrome system here. Sorry. You can actually go, let's see, this is an emulated devices list. You can add your emulated devices. There is a way to actually hook up a phone to this and then actually look it up on your phone, right? but we won't be able to actually pull this up, right? Because we're running this locally on this computer. We're not running this on the web. Now, we could pop open a, let's see, like we could run a Heroku server, or we could run, a GCP app, an Azure app, AWS, and we could host this somewhere, right? And if we hosted it somewhere, we could pop it up on our Android phone, and then we could hook the Android phone to our computer, and in Chrome, we could connect to it. You're gonna need a device driver. Setting up all the device drivers is not a simple thing, I'll be honest. It kind of is a pain in the butt, but once you get it working, there's plenty of tutorials online about it. You will be able to actually go in here, and you'll be able to highlight the DOM, and it will show on the phone itself, right? And so it's a pretty cool ability to debug on a physical piece of hardware. But let's just say you don't want to spin up a Heroku app, or you want to be able to just quickly add console.logs anytime that you want to, like test something, and you want to be able to see the feedback from like a JavaScript standpoint locally here, right? So what you can actually do is you could use something called local tunnel, right? So let's go ahead. We're going to pop open another terminal here. So now we have two terminals, and we're going to install something called local tunnel. All right, so if I pull up local tunnel real quick, oh, that's localhost, sorry. Let's pull up local tunnel. All right, this is just an npm package. And you can kind of see here, you globally install it, and then you can call LT, and you can define a port here, right? So we have something already defined. We have a port running, and we're going to now call LT-port 3000, because 3000 is what we're currently running our node instance on, right? And so it's going to actually give us this free URL, and it's quite a long URL. You can copy it here. Let's see, we're gonna go ahead and copy that. And when we actually go to, you kind of have to go to it on the web real quick. So you go to it, it has this little friendly reminder, and you can click to continue, right? All right, so it pops open at that URL. You can see this is the URL you are running this at, but now we actually have a URL that we can quickly kind of grab, and we can pull up on our physical phone. So I have an iPhone here, and I'm going to go to freewings by, and then 66229. They don't make the URL super friendly. If you actually create a build script for it, you can request a subdomain, which is pretty nice, but they can't guarantee you're going to get it. So it's honestly sometimes not even worth it. But it will make this a little bit easier if you want to. But you can do local.lt, right? All right, and then you go to it, and you can actually see it pulls. Maybe you can't see it, but it does actually pull. Oh, screwing up the green screen. It pulls the application down, right? So I can go ahead, I can turn this thing, and I'm hoping you guys can see this. Not well, that's for sure. But again, it pulls the actual screen up. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sign. All right. And bam, you can see the signature right there. And again, we can click clear. It clears it. And we're actually debugging this application that's running locally. So if we had API calls, any type of requests along those lines, it would, in fact, you'd see the payloads running through our server. So if we actually had payloads running and we were logging them right here in the actual terminal here, we would see the payloads being delivered, and we'd be able to put console.logs and real time be able to change this. And if you do actually reset this server, local tunnel is smart enough to realize that, and local tunnel will reset as well. So local tunnel, definitely a huge piece of debugging, or a huge piece of your debugging arsenal, and it's super convenient for being able to test local code on a physical device. Now, if you want to take it one step further, or you want to continue to use something like local tunnel, you could also go and you could plug your iPhone into a Mac. You could download something like Xcode if you don't have an iPhone, and you could run the iPhone simulator or emulator. And that's actually a step above, you know, the Chrome emulator, right? It actually has all of the same events. It's honestly near perfect in terms of running exactly how a physical piece of hardware would. Android Studio has something similar for the Android devices. Now, I definitely have to say that the Android devices are not nearly as good as, or the Android emulators are not nearly as good as the iPhones or emulators. Now, they have been getting better over time, but iOS is definitely far ahead in terms of emulator technology, and it's definitely a significantly better experience running the emulators on a Mac. Now, there is a browser on Macs called the Safari Technology Preview. And so if you download that, what you can do is you can hook your iPhone up to the computer, and you could be running an application like this, but pull up the Safari Dev Tools, and you could highlight the DOM, and you'll see on the phone itself, you'll see the actual DOM being highlighted, similar to when you debug in Chrome. And again, they do, like, Chrome does the same thing with Android devices. You just have to look up how to actually add the device and make sure the device driver is working with Chrome and all that. But extremely useful, very useful for actually being able to debug on the local device and see exactly what's going wrong. I've had to do this so many times I can't even count, because for some reason, sometimes certain things won't work on an iOS device that work perfectly in a browser. Same thing goes for Android. So the browsers on Androids are slightly different than the Chrome browser in, let's say, your desktop, right? And so things have been getting more and more uniform, but there's always going to probably be slight differences. So definitely test and test often, and hopefully you can use something like Local Tunnel to make your experience for your application better. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you learned a little something today, and I hope you get to use something like Local Tunnel or one of the other application debugging techniques I mentioned in your own mobile debugging efforts. Now, if something doesn't work exactly the way I described, or something just isn't working at all for you, feel free to drop it in the comments. We would love to investigate it with you, figure out what's going wrong, and get it working for you. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we want to be with you, and we want you to be with us along this whole content journey. So if you have any suggestions for future content, feel free to drop us a line. We'd love to make a video for you. Either way, we'll see you soon.